Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nisa Hidayah from Sumbawa University of Technology, Industrial Engineering Study Program with name 1901015043. I will review journal with the theme Attention and Interpretation of Cognitive Bias Change, a systematic review and meta-analysis of the bias modification paradigm, written by Annie Martinelli, Jessica Grill, Corina Bem. Journal article consists of first abstract, second introduction, third method, fourth result, and last conclusion. The abstract in this journal is the systematic review and meta-analysis examines the effect of cognitive bias modification for attention and interpretation on reducing the target bias and investigates moderators of each approach. PsycInfo, PsycArticle, and PubMed database were searched for randomized control studies published before March 2020 with pre and post CBM cognitive bias outcome measure resulting in 91 CBMA and 70 CBMI samples. Effect size did not differ between approaches and remained significant after trim and fill adjustment for possible publication bias. Moderator variables were investigated with meta-regression and subgroup analysis. Results support attention and interpretation modification in control laboratory and variable training setting for non-clinical and clinical samples across various symptom types. Next, introduction. Cognitive psychopathological models emphasize the role of basic information processing in the development, emergence, and maintenance of clinical phenomena, ranging from anxiety and depression to aggression and addiction. Of the cognitive biases proposed to play a role in maladaptive psychological outcomes, attention and interpretation bias have most comprehensively been targeted in CBM paradigm development to date. These paradigms investigate the modifiability of the respective cognitive biases with the goal to eliminate potential causal rather than mere associational relationship between cognitive bias and psychological health variables. Based on the underlying premise of the causal relationship between cognitive biases and psychological outcome variables, CBM shall be shown to consistently and significantly reduce the former before evaluating their effect on the latter. In total, 8 meta-analyses supporting CBM effect size for cognitive bias reduction published before March 2020 report overall effect size ranging widely between G equal 0.30 and Z equal 0.33 sample as well as methodological characteristic include primary studies are heterogeneous regarding age, clinical status, non-clinical setting, duration, paradigm, type, and stimulus material. The goal of the current study is to before provident and update meta-analytic synthesis of CBMA and CBMI and to investigate under which circumstance each method is most effective at reducing its target bias among sample characteristics. Age, student status, health status, and symptom type will be considered. Of this, previous Previous meta-analyses have found mixed indication of larger bias reduction effect within younger samples, when reports that have been interpreted with respect to greater cognitive flexibility and familiarity with computerized tasks. However, a potential for confoundment between younger age and student status cannot be excluded, for which reason the current analysis will explore age and student status separately. Regarding health status and symptom type, larger bias modifiability has been reported in clinical compared to non-clinical samples and in anxiety more than other symptom types. These findings indicate great modifiability in individuals for whom there is of bias, and thus the possibility for a reduction is hypnoted, or for whom the specific bias type might be more inherent to the clinical symptomatology, finding stable distinction related to age, health status, or symptom type called does inform theory behind bias modifiability and individualizability, carrying practical implication for intervention and prevention by indicating which population might benefit most from CBM. Next is the method. As for this, the research is focused on primary studies using a modified bias paradigm. Fifth, in the first step, the study was screened to identify the article for exclusion because they did not include independent sample data, unavailability of full text, and unavailability in English or German. Next, eligibility criteria were checked to include studies with the use of a bias method specific task. The same procedure was used for coding and data extraction dictation. Articles were first coded on the basis of paradigm CBMI studies were additionally coded based on the outcome bias measure. The latter coding was included due to the possibility to operationalize CBMI outcome as either a reduction of negative, threatening interpretation as an increase in positive interpretations, or as a change in overall bias score. Further articles were coded with respect to moderator variables, referring to sample and methodological characteristics. Because independent samples are defined as analysis units, a primary study can provide more than one effect size if various control groups will relate to one experimental group. Though no contingency training was selected for effect size calculation. If several post-measurement times were available in the primary study, the date of the first post-measurement time point after CBM completion was used. In primary study with different post-measurement tests, the outcome of the test conceptually most congruent to the training paradigm was used. Of the CBMI studies, and currently 34 studies did not calculate an overall interpretation bias score, but instead report positive and negative interpretation outcome measured separately. Here, spread effect size were calculated for the positive and negative outcomes in addition, but outcome measures were aggregated into a combined modification-based effect size. In defining clinical status, clinical study were coded if participant selection was performed according to an accepted clinically relevant cut-off on an assessment instrument validated for clinical diagnosis or via further diagnostic procedure. Next is the result. The results in this journal are following PRISMA guidelines. We identified 143 eligible studies to be included in the meta-analysis. In total, the total sample size of the 91 CBMA samples was 5914, of which 3099 individuals were assigned to the modification condition. The trainings were designed to direct attention away from threatening, negative or appetitive stimuli towards neutral or positive stimuli. The baseline training was the most common control condition, followed by the negative training condition. Dot probe trials range within on training session between a minimum of 80 and maximum of 896 trials. In total, 70 samples were identified for meta-analysis from 67 articles. The group comparison include 59 individuals in the quantification condition versus 19 samples include children and or adolescent individuals. The direction of interpretation modification was either positive or benign. 58.6% used only one training session for interpretation modification, with further studies varying between 2 and 14 between 10 and 284 trial were used within a training session. Notable differences in heterogeneity between studies were identified key. Okay, here we will also explain about the limits, which are as follows. While including a large number of primary studies, the current analysis underlines certain limitation with the prediction interval of the current result are large, indicating that across all subgroups the results are highly heterogeneous. Thus, despite both positive effect size within subgroup analysis, it remains questionable to what extent the variable implementation of each approach are actually applicable or appropriate for all target population, or for specific individuals within this target population. In a similar vein, interactive effects among moderators were not extensively investigated, such that specific methodological characteristics most appropriate or adaptive for certain population cannot be discerned from the current result. Symptom severity, duration, age of onset, and course of progression. Although CBM paradigms have expanded to address various symptom types, all subgroup analysis in the current study, except non-specific anxiety and social anxiety, were calculated with n less than 10 samples. The small number of included studies indicate that while CBM is being adapted to further symptom areas, there are still new research areas which are more prone to publication bias. Further studies across symptom groups are therefore encouraged expressly, along with the publication of negative findings and small effect sizes. Furthermore, the current study explicitly investigates the effectiveness of CBMA and CBMI to modify their respective cognitive biases, without limiting the analysis studies to those including behavioral outcome measures. Indeed, Associations have been reported between cognitive biases and numerous other psychological markers, including well-being, resilience, quality of social relationship, and health management. It is therefore warrant to consider in a first instance the harmful adaptive cognitive bias modification effect independently of further psychological and psychical outcome measure. A main finding of the current study is that cognitive bias reduction is possible with the CBM methods most commonly implemented. When estimating therapeutic benefit for individual therapy, however, further variables including which behavioral outcome is to be targeted, how strongly cognitive biases of either kind are present in a particular individual, and to what extent those biases are relevant in baseline and stress response situation should be considered. Finally, every meta-analysis is confirmed with multiple sources of bias-related individual primary studies and within the overall state of the literature. In the current study, only published studies in peer-reviewed journal were included, making the analysis susceptible to publication bias due to the inclusion criteria of randomization and blinding of participants. These biased searches are unlikely to have affected the current result. Similarly, as the current study only includes studies providing pre- and post-CBM measurement, change baseline difference between groups were accounted for in the statistical analysis. A significant static will always report value. A systematic overestimation of effect size can be assumed, which has only been accounted for here via the publication-based assessment. And the last one is conclusion. The current study with 161 binary samples represents the large meta-analysis on cognitive bias modification paradigms. CBMA and CBMI were considered separately across a broad sample and methodological range. CBMI were considered separately across a broad sample and methodological range. Overall, the present results indicate a large variability in specific sample and methodological parameters, over which an observed within a medium range remains stable, even after adjustment for possible publication bias. Thank you for your attention. Sorry if there are many mistakes and shortcomings. I really hope for such suggestion and input to be better. I'm closing. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ska jag fira julen här på Hawaii? Men det lindrar ej hemlängtans glöd. Men det lindrar ej hemlängtans glöd. Ensam sjöman är långt från svenska kusten skär. Ska jag fira julen här på Hawaii?